everybody, and welcome to, I think, probably the first part of maybe a multi-part series-ish thing of finishing books that I've started in 2022 before the end of the year. This video is going to be dedicated to hopefully finishing Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Let me tell you, I started this book on the 2nd of May. That has been over 7 months ago. So, yep. I'm really not much into it. I've read to page, my edition is like 280 pages. I've read to page 31. I'm just going to start on chapter 8. I have kind of forgotten what's happened, but I need to do some work on my reading journal today, hopefully. So I'm gonna listen to an audiobook of it on YouTube, hopefully, whilst I'm penciling out and filling all that stuff in. And then hopefully that video will be ready for you to watch, maybe before I do not know. But yeah. And then after I've listened to some of that, I'll probably like read along some and talk about it. In all honesty, I don't exactly know what the story is because I've never watched any of the adaptations. I think I've seen like tiny bits of them, but I've never actually like watched it in full. I sort of get the idea that it's about sort of like it's like the original enemies to lovers like romance trope, about the Bennington family. What are they called again? I love how it starts. Like, it's such like a, like, I feel like so many people, like, even if they haven't read this, they know the start of it. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Yeah, it's Mr. Bennet. It's the Bennets, and he's like the main character, like the main like love interest sort of is like Darcy someone, but obviously I don't really know, so I'm going to re-listen to the first few chapters on audiobook and then some more and follow along, and I'll give you an update soon. I read to chapter 23, which is in my volume, in my copy, it comes at the end of volume 1, so I'm going on to volume 2. But because I've been listening as an audiobook, in the audiobook they don't like, it just goes to chapter 24, so I might be a little bit confusing going forward because in mine it goes back to chapter 1. But anywho, I'll get through it. I don't know, it's okay. In all honesty, I don't really care. I haven't really had that, like, I haven't really been able to love the characters. Most of them are all kind of annoying, in all honesty. Basically, it's the Bennets, and basically what's happened already is like the children, like the girls, they're like women, went to like a party or whatever to see the new neighbour, Mr. Bingley, and his friend Mr. Darcy. And basically it's very likely that Jane, the eldest Bennet, is gonna marry Mr. Bingley because they got on well and stuff, and that's what the mum wants and things like that. And Elizabeth, which is like, I don't know, I think she might be the youngest Bennet, or I cannot remember. They have sort of, her and Mr. Darcy have sort of like a bad relationship, but over the time when they've been like seeing each other, like not seeing each other but like in the same spaces as each other, they've sort of been like looking at each other, but like they still like, they're having like these ideas that are like, oh, like, why would they be looking at me because they can't like find me pretty, but also why would they be looking at me if they hate me so much, like, do you know what I mean? So they don't like know what's going on. But I'm pretty sure that's what happened, is it's like the enemies to lovers. But anyways, and then the like a cousin or something that knows the Bennets that is meant to inherit the place where they live, Longbourn or something. He like came to stay with the Bennets for a bit, and then he asks Elizabeth to marry him, but she's like, no, I do not want to marry you, no thank you. And then like her mum is sort of like, oh, like, wow, like, why not, like, why do you want to marry him, like, it'll be good for you and stuff, and like, oh, like, you're not my daughter and things. But anyway, and then their friend, Elizabeth's friend, Charlotte Lucas, I think they're called. She's like another like rich household. She instead gets engaged to this Mr. Collins, who is the like the family whatever, like a reverend or something. And then Elizabeth's like, oh, okay, but like I don't think she really cares. And yeah, that's sort of like what happened. And also Mr. Bingley's sister doesn't really want him to marry Jane. She wants him to marry Mr. Darcy's younger sister, but she's like 14, and I think the Mr. Bingley is going to be like, I don't know, 20 something or other. So it's just a bit like, ew, okay, why are you trying to set this up? Like, she's a child, but like obviously I know things are different. The writing's okay, it is quite repetitive and it's quite difficult to actually understand what's going on. That is sort of like a me problem because I'm not very like skilled in deciphering words in this period, so obviously it's not something to blame the book for, it's more like my knowledge of the book and the writing and things. But it is quite wordy. It's quite slow paced and repetitive, and I don't really care all that much, but I'm hoping it does get better, and I'm sort of like, I'm somewhat through, so I do want to finish it, definitely. I would be a nice accomplishment to finish this book before the end of the year. I do not know, but we'll still persist. Hi, so I've just come out of the bath, but I wanted to do an update on Pride and Prejudice because I feel like if I don't talk about it I might forget what's actually happened, because it's somewhat hard to follow. But basically I just want us to have a mind blur basically, and yeah, that's why I look a bit weird, but I'm in my Grinchy pajamas because it's Christmassy and totally beside the point. I do not know why I said that, but anyway, so basically so Elizabeth's sister Jane went to like London, and she was hoping to see Bingley. Only his sister saw her, and she was like saying how like, oh, Bingley and Darcy were like busy and stuff, so they didn't really get to see each other. And Elizabeth was sort of like a little bit interested in George Wickham or something, who knows the Darcys somehow, and he sort of like painted Mr. Darcy as like in quite a bad light, and how like he said that like he didn't let him have his inheritance or something that his father promised him, because Darcy's father was Wickham's godfather. Anyway, and then how the Mr. Collins, who was proposed to Elizabeth but she said no, he proposed to her friend Charlotte Lucas. Anyway, so they got married, and they moved back to Kent, and then Elizabeth went to see Charlotte and Mr. Collins in Kent, and I really don't like Mr. Collins. He's always like, he's so like, he just wants to say, oh, I'm so rich, and like all these rich things, and all like, oh, Lady Catherine carriage, oh, but carriages, I must say, because she has multiple carriages, and like, he's such like a sucker up to Lady Catherine. And Lady Catherine is like, I don't mind Lady Catherine, like she's okay, like I do like her being like a powerful, influential woman at the time, but she is very like snobbish, and like, oh, like not all of your sisters paint, not all of your sisters can play music, oh, you didn't have a governess, oh, your mother was was a really bad mother for not like giving you all this like stuff, But Elizabeth's like, no, like, we was able to read what we want, we learned what we want, we're like, we had a good childhood and stuff. And then I love how like Elizabeth is sort of like, was one of the first people that actually like talked back to Lady Catherine. I really like that. So I'm actually really liking Elizabeth more. And I'm sort of like getting to know who's who and how the story is developing. Anyhow, so while she's in Kent, they visit Catherine and stuff, and then Darcy and his cousin come because Lady Catherine is somehow related to Darcy as well. It's quite confusing, all of that, like the actual connections I still don't really get, but the actual plot line I am sort of getting. He comes and they're just like talking and stuff, and like their relationship is still like but like apparently Charlotte was seeing that Darcy has been sort of like looking at Elizabeth a bit and stuff, and then the other cousin said how Darcy tried to was sort of like boasting how he got a friend to not marry someone, and Elizabeth deciphered that the cousin was talking about Darcy talking about Bingley and her sister Jane. So she's like, what? Like, how could he be so evil to like ruin, like to like butt in and like make a decision about his friend's like future and happiness, and like obviously her sister as well. And yeah, so she really doesn't like Darcy now, but he's like been coming like to the house, like sort of like checking on her and stuff, which was like okay. And then she was like thinking like why would he like me, like ew. And then I mean, I kind of everything that I've said is sort of been a spoiler, so I'm going to put that at the beginning of the video. But he proposes, he says, how ardently I admire and love you, which is so cute. But then she's like, ew, I don't want to marry you. Bye. So he's like, oh, like, oh, whatever, like, I don't really like love you anyway, I didn't even like you anyway, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, do you know why I don't like you? Because you split up my sister and your friend, and because you was nasty to Wickham and stuff. And he's like, oh, whatever, and just leaves. And then the next day, when she's like walking in the park that's like nearby, he sees her because he's been waiting for her like to see her, and he gives her a letter saying how like he's had good intentions for splitting up Bingley and Jane, but like sort of apologized, but also not fully. It was sort of like, oh, like I did it, like I'm not really like guilt, I'm not like bad, I'm not sad about it, but like I did it with good intentions. I think I didn't really fully get that. A lot of it I don't fully get, but this is my take. And how there's like a whole like Darcy and Wickham are basically saying like two different sides of the story of what went down, and she's like thinking back to like how quick Wickham was like badmouth Darcy, and how like they were just strangers and he was like chatting about him. So she's like, oh, okay. So she's sort of like thinking about things. And yeah, that is all what I've read up to. I don't know, I was listening to an audiobook while I was in the bath and like sort of reading a little bit along. So this isn't where I'm meant to be. But I think I'm probably about 50-60% through. I'm quite enjoying it actually, yeah. I'm definitely still not getting it fully, and the writing is going over my head a bit. But it's okay, it's a bit funny, some parts, and I'm intrigued. I want to know what happens more, and I am starting to really like Elizabeth as well, so yeah, I'll give you an update soon. Preferably when my hair is not wet and it is freezing. So I've been listening to more of Pride and Prejudice whilst doing some Christmas wrapping, and something just happened. I'm like, okay. I didn't expect that, but I thought I'd quickly come on and give a little update because this is a reading vlog. So let me see if I can put you somewhere where I can like talk to you. Oh gosh. Yeah, is that good? But basically, I've got like anyway. So she went, so I said about like she got a letter and stuff, and then she was like thinking like, oh, maybe he's not as bad as people think and stuff. And then like Wickham is not really that good. But anyway, so she goes back to Longbourn, where her family is and stuff, with Jane, and sees her little sisters and stuff. And then just like the time's like going by like quite like long, and then one of the daughters, Lydia, she's gonna go to Brighton with some relative, and that's apparently where like some like the soldiers are and stuff, because the other like younger children, they're like, they like soldiers and stuff, they're sort of like, oh, like flirty and stuff with soldiers. Anyway, so Lydia goes off, and then Elizabeth is like getting excited for like a northern tour, where she was gonna go with her aunt and uncle to visit like the Lake District and sort of like places up there. But then the aunt is like, oh, I don't really want to go that all the way up there anymore, I just want to go to Derbyshire to see like her old house or something, or like friends or whatever, something. I don't know the specifics, my head isn't that trained for this sort of like depth of a book. Anyway, and in Derbyshire is where Mr. Darcy's house, Pembridge, is. So she's a bit like, oh no, but like it'll be fine, I can go through the county and not see him. Anyway, so it's all going all right and stuff, they're having like a fun time. She obviously, she did want to go to the lakes more, that was more like interest to her, but like they're taking her anyway, so she was just like happy. Anyway, and then the aunt is like, oh, let's like go see Pembridge just because like it's in the area. And then Elizabeth is like, but I don't want to see Darcy. But the maid or something says that he isn't meant to be coming until the next day, so she's like, oh my god, wow, like we missed him by a day, like yes. But then when they're about to leave, who comes up the hill? Mr. Darcy. So they're all a bit like and the housekeeper and stuff was saying about how like he was like, he's really nice and stuff, which is like against the opinions of like most of the other people she knows. And then they meet him and like it's all okay, it's all like pleasantry and stuff, and then he's like, oh, I want to introduce you to my sister. So then the next day he comes with her sister and stuff, and that's all fine and whatever. And then they go to back to Pembridge, and there's sort of like just seeing each other and stuff. But then Elizabeth gets a letter from her sister saying that Lydia has went off with a soldier up to Scotland, and then another letter saying that she eloped with Wickham. So Wickham and Lydia like eloped together and got married in like towards Scotland, and they're trying to like find her and be like, where is she and stuff. And then Elizabeth starts like breaking down in tears because she's like, oh my god, I'm like so stressed. And then they go home, all this stuff. And then Mr. Darcy is like, oh, like, you sure there's nothing we can do? And he's sort of like trying to be nice and stuff. So yeah, that's what I've got up to. I just thought I'd quickly come on and let you know, because I was like, okay, I did not see that come in, but okay, Lydia, go off. But like, make sure he treats you well, because I did not like Wickham. But yeah, whatever, I'm gonna listen to some more and finish doing my prezzies. I have an update. So the Lydia like apparently eloped, and they thought she went to Scotland, but she actually didn't. They went to London. But anyway, Elizabeth goes home to like see Jane, and yeah, and then she they're all just like, where is Lydia? Like, what's happened? Uncle goes to London to try and like find her. And then apparently he does, and then sends back saying that he's encouraged them to like marry like properly. So Lydia and Wickham get married. And then Lydia's all like, oh my god, I'm a married woman, like look at my ring, and blah blah, look at my, I'm Miss Wickham now, oh my god, I want everyone to know that I'm married, like I'm the first Bennington child, Bennington whatever child to get married, like I'm higher than you now, Jane, and all this blah blah blah, like sticking it up and stuff. And then apparently she's going to be moving to Newcastle with Wickham because that's where he's like gonna be stationed or something in the army or whatever. And then Jane is talking about the wedding to Elizabeth because Elizabeth walked off earlier because she was like, I'm like, I don't really care, honestly, Lydia, whatever, I don't really like you. And then she like accidentally says that Mr. Darcy was at the wedding. So Elizabeth's like, what? Mr. Darcy? Why? Because like, why would he? Because he doesn't like Wickham. He doesn't care for like the Benningtons really. He had no reason to be there. But then Elizabeth's like, okay, like if you don't want to tell me, fine, whatever, I don't really care. And she sends a letter to her aunt, who then says how like a day or something after they left Pemberton, Darcy went to London to try and like find where Wickham and Lydia were, and he actually found them, and it was he that like encouraged them to like probably get married and like send like letters back and stuff saying like things to not bring like shame or whatever on the look at it's nice on the family. Okay, I'll put it. And then she's like, oh, that's like so sweet, like he didn't have to do that, like why would he do that, because he didn't care for Wickham, he didn't care for Lydia, like why would he do it? And then she was like, maybe it was for me. And then she was like thinking like, oh, like only like 4 months ago or something I would have like I hated him, like I rejected him, but now like maybe I would have accepted. So yeah. And also the aunt was like how like she actually really liked Darcy, he was a nice character and stuff. So I'm gonna have my Clementine and listen to some more and give you an update after. I'm up now because I'm trying to re-sort out my bookshelves. But anyway, so there's been some more developments. So Lydia went off to Newcastle, whatever. And yeah, she was just like not really that nice. But anyway, Bingley was coming back up to Netherfield, which is like the house near them, and then Miss Bennet was like, let's invite him, and then Miss Bennet was like, no, I ain't chasing after him. But then she was like, okay, well, I'll just invite him, whatever. And then him and Darcy came, yep, and then it was all pleasantries and stuff. Jane was like, I'm gonna say, I do not care, like whatever, he can come, he can not come, I could not care less. But then multiple meetings happen and they're engaged. So Jane and Bingley are finally back together and they're engaged to get married. And then Lady Catherine came up, and then she was like, I want to speak with Elizabeth. So they go into the garden and talk and stuff, and then Lady Catherine's all like, did my nephew propose to you, blah blah blah, like how can you, he's meant to be marrying my daughter, all this chatter, like you're not good, your family ain't good, all that. But then she was like, no, we're not engaged, but I'm good enough. And then she was like, I'm not going to promise you that I will never be engaged to him. So then she goes off, and they're like, she's like, how dare you speak to me like that, blah blah. But then Elizabeth was just like, it's my land, it's my house, like shift. And then Darcy comes back and they have like some time to finally speak alone, and then Elizabeth is always like, oh, thank you so much for like finding Lydia and making them get married and all that stuff. And he's like, oh, I didn't want you to know that, like, oh yeah, all right, secretive. I'm joking. He's all right, he grew on me. And then he's like, my feelings to you haven't changed, what about you? And Elizabeth is like thinking, well, they have changed quite a lot actually. So I think they might I think they're gonna get together, I do not know. But I just wanted to quickly come on and talk about that. With the Gardeners, they were always on the most intimate terms. Darcy, as well as Elizabeth, really loved them, and they were both ever sensible of the warmest gratitude towards the persons who, by bringing her into Derbyshire, had been the means of uniting them. The end. So I finished Pride and Prejudice. I'm so happy because obviously I started this in May, and I didn't know if I was going to finish this year, but I did, with a lot of persecution. Yeah, and I'm really happy I finished it. It's actually an achievement for me to finish this book, because like I've never really read anything sort of really like it, like a proper classic sort of one that everybody talks about. So yeah, but I'm really happy I actually finished it. I did quite enjoy it. And I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. So I would definitely recommend it. It was a good, pleasant read. It wasn't necessarily anything amazing. It wasn't that good. That's just because I am a proudly contemporary loving reader. I love my contemporaries, and specifically queer contemporaries and more diverse books, and obviously this is all cishet white people. So yeah, there's that. The writing, despite being 200 years old, was mostly readable. There was a few phrases and things I didn't really get, but for the most part it followed. And Austen really uses description and stuff to bring characters and places and the things to life, which is really nice to read. And then and the characters are very well developed and analysed, and there's lots of growth, which is an integral part of the story, is character growth and things. Elizabeth was my favourite character. I loved how headstrong she was, and she didn't really dull her personality with who she was, and she mostly spoke her mind. And this was something I think she got from her mother, who also did that and didn't really let the fact that they was women in the time really impede their power in a sense. Obviously some parts they did, but for the most part they was quite strong characters. Darcy had the biggest growth, with lots at the start being very rude and stuff, but you later learn that they sort of come from a place of well-meaning, but still yeah. But obviously his growth is a major part of the book and the story, I've got to say. But Master Darcy's major character personality, from the start, and quite a lot of it actually, was based on his Pride and Prejudice. So great title there, Janie. Very fitting. Yeah, just wanted to let you know. And Pride, and the idea of prejudice and classism, and so misogyny in a way is prevalent in the book. So the other Bennet sisters were all fine. Lydia I didn't really like much. The dad wasn't really didn't really have that much of a big personality. Charlotte Lucas, she was fine. Mr. Bingley, he was quite a nice character, and Jane was nice. Obviously it's annoying that they didn't really was able to get together for that long, but obviously they did in the end, thankfully. And yeah, my least favourite characters would have been Mr. Collins and Wickham. They were just ill. And yeah. So, because obviously this whole video has been spoilers, I will spoil the last bit. They did get married, and obviously they moved away to Pembroke, I cannot remember, Pemberley, and obviously thing is, yeah. Oh, and also I really like the Gardeners. They were nice relative. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.